How you doing, guys? Just bear with me a wee second here. Right, that's done anyway. So I'm just waiting on Marshall and Gav appearing. We're going to talk about some of the language and some other aspects of this. Obviously, there's always, going to be a lot more to this than just what shapes the earth. It's how we understand this language, how we, iron out some of these issues, how we understand our own minds and the language that we use in order to decipher when there's lies and bullshit being spun to us. So I'm just going to wait and them arriving, but while I'm here, this is just some of the idiocy still that we have to put up with. So I'm just going to have a wee read here at this. And this is from a user called Leanne Flood. Del. And another thing, you say, show me a body of water that conforms to a shape. Well, any vessel that you put a liquid into, the liquid conforms to its shape, whether that be round or a square. Exactly, Leanne. I mean, this is exactly what we've been saying all along. This is physics. That is testable, observable, repeatable by everybody. So I'm glad you're getting it. But, you continue on here with utter nonsense in the very same fucking paragraph. The water will curve and bend into the area it is confined to. Nobody's denying that. Just because it's a flat surface on the top of your glass of water, but if you make that glass larger, gravity will always keep the water at the same level as the levels of gravity around the whole planet are all equal. Now, it's just pure word salad and fucking sophism yet again. So, we'll get these people who accept tested, observed, repeated reality 100% of the time doesn't change. It doesn't matter if it's a glass or a bowl or a bathtub or a swimming pool or a lake or a fucking ocean. Water is water. That's how it behaves. No imaginary, there's a magical pressure that keeps the water like this. No, this is part of what we're going to discuss tonight. All aspects of these claims have to be broken down and proven practically, right? We know how liquid behaves. It totally debunks the idea or the proposition that you're living on the exterior of any shape. The earth has to be a container. There is absolutely no getting away from that, right? It's covered in liquid. The place is filled with liquid, right? So it has to be a container. Leanne, right? If people like you are trying to postulate that at some unspecified scale, the physics as we know it break down and change, the burden is on you. It's an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary proof. Right? You've no got any. So I suggest, Leanne, that you take yourself from your pedestal and your Del, as if you're here trying to help. We're trying to help you people who are still part of a cult. Right? You're still suffering from cult programming. Right? It's not going to go away. Reality doesn't care about your culty beliefs. Right? It is what it is. So we'll be discussing that and some other things, first principles, and what we're actually talking about, and why, we're never going to get anywhere until people agree on these things. So people like Leanne, I suggest you take your fingers out of your ears, stop trying to, perpetuate your belief, open your mind up and have a real look at what's going on in reality, okay? I want to believe, but your theories have no scientific proof or backups. End of. This is from Leanne. Well, Leanne, fluid mechanics, everybody can test these things for themselves. There is nobody on Earth who is going to find a body of water displaying shapes upon its surface. It's preposterous and totally idiotic, right? So you don't have to believe. I don't want you or anybody else to believe in anything. I would rather you remove belief and you just put your mind into a frame of knowing, right? Because beliefs are the problem. Beliefs are how we're in this fucking mess in the first place. Because people are in fear, ignorance, bewilderment, and they're grasping and clutching at beliefs left, right, and centre. Okay? It's simple. And people like me are going to keep it fucking simple, right? So the only reason I'm reading that out is because it was there in my wee bell, right at the top. So, where am I here? Marshall, how you doing, man?
Oh, fair to measure.
Good. Always nice to hear consistency.
Yeah. I enjoyed the consistent timing this evening. I thought we were good. I thought we were starting up on time, though.
It's Google's fault. When I hit the start hangout, it takes a wee while for it to spool up, so it's not my fault. I clicked it at 1:30, so
that's a fiver you owe me.
So, as I say, I'm waiting Gav coming in and we're going to discuss and lay out some of this stuff. So, while I'm waiting, I'll just say hello to everybody who's in the chat. Kelvin, 1976, how you doing? Jeranism Steer, Sergeant the Sinful Agents. Twitwit, how you doing? Martin Leakey, how you doing? PC, they love their bendy water. Of course they do. It's a real problem for them. The sophism is becoming so transparent. They are repeatedly hitting their heads off a brick wall. And as I say, we're going to discuss discuss this tonight about first principles and how discussions can never go any further unless people start accepting what reality actually is, and they remove the sophism, the red herrings, the logical fallacies. If they can't remove that, as I'm going to suggest, we'll treat this as a game, and people who start employing these things should be removed from the game. They've just tagged themselves out. I think it's a huge part of it, and I don't think people really understand the significance of learning this kind of language and then how to use it and apply it when it's necessary, right? Because it can help to cut through a load of bullshit, right? This whole, never-ending saga of the false dichotomy, left against right, it's getting fucking mind-numbingly boring now. Okay, we have to have some sort of progress, as I keep suggesting. It doesn't matter what anybody believes, right? Whether it's globe, flat, concave, it's about objective truth, it's about objective reality, it's from natural science. It's a very simple and exacting methodology that we need to use in order to establish it. So, no probs, Gav. Gav is going to be 15 minutes, so I will just continue to read from the chat and whatever else. While I'm at it, again, I'm still seeing this, people, scared to commit. Look, saying flat earth and committing to it doesn't mean to say that you're committing to some cartoon model of what flat earth means. At some point, you have to commit in knowing that what you've been told is false. Right? As I say, physics will show you beyond any shadow of a doubt that the earth is a container of some kind. What the full dimensions are unknown. As an investigation that is ongoing, and there's people who are determined to know what that is. Right? All these other people who are causing divisions and distractions, it's either ignorance, stupidity, or it's deliberate. But as we go so far, my patience only extends so far in regards to, them being stupid or ignorant. You have to at some point start looking at this as being deliberate. And again, I'll reiterate it, for me, it's part of the psyop. Flat earth is not the psyop. There's psyops within it, the same as every other walk of life. Okay, so IPC, they certainly do love their bendy water, although it doesn't exist. When it doesn't, it exists in raindrops and stupid things like this, meniscus and surface tension, adhesion. But when we're talking about bodies of water, what happens when little droplets collect into a body, how that behaviour, is, and what we observe and test and repeat. And as I say, we know beyond any shadow of a doubt that bodies of water do not have the ability to display shapes upon the surface. It doesn't matter how big you want to imagine or suggest, it's no observable, testable, or repeatable at any scale, right? So it's no reality, and it's not going to change. The oceans are no a magical place where there's mystical energies making things different. George, cheers Dale from Chicago, Illinois. Cheers, George. Angus Fitzsimmons, how you doing? Beyond Belief, how you doing? Chilster Deluxe, how's it going? Linny Flat Earth, Christina, how do? Underground TV, how you doing, man? Beyond Belief, End of Bewilderment. Yeah, well, that's exactly what, I hope to achieve. You can achieve it within yourself. I'm not in bewilderment. I'm still in a position of not knowing exactly where I am or who we are or what's actually going on. But internally, it's calm. I've removed these belief structures from my mind, the things that cause you confusion and problems. Sorry, were you going to say something there, Marshall? Was I hearing things there?
No, I'm cool, dude. I'll just, while I've got the opportunity, I'll point out intention in the chat suggesting that you invest in a better microphone because your accent plus the current mic is very hard to follow, as you are not a native speaker of English, apparently.
All right. Oh, my poor feels. You're hurting me beyond anything I can describe right now. I do apologize.
I would suggest, intention, that perhaps you're not a native listener of English,
Well, I do try my best. If I'm not palatable for, the wider audience, then, what can I do? I do try. I am not the voice for everybody, right? I am not flat earth, right? It's not just me. There is thousands of people involved in this. I suggest that you just go and pay attention to them if, that's your bag. Again, I'm not here to, please everybody or, speak in a way that gets across to everybody. I do try and clean my speech up. I do understand that, my slack accent, when I slip into it, is very difficult for people to understand. But, I've not got the patience to keep up the James Bond voice forever. If I keep it up, I'm going to forget who I am. Philip Pelsberg, back to basics. That is what we need. All out natural physics. Yep. And to accompany that, we need to understand the mind and how it's operating and how we're affecting each other. How language can be misconstrued. And for me, there's a formulated language that is there that we can use and apply that helps us to, find out what is objectively true. There's a huge difference between your subjective interpretation of things, how you feel about things, what tastes nice to you, what smells nice to you, what colours appeal to you, what sounds appeal to you. There's a separation between subjective and objective. There is an objective reality that's not going to change or will, or bend to anybody's subjective wishes or experience. And for me, that's what the whole thing's about. It's about establishing what that objectivity actually is. So you're right, Philip, it is back to basics with the whole lot of it. And for me, I keep reiterating it and saying to people, we have to remove these belief structures, these ideologies from our minds altogether. We need to stop pandering and bowing down to authority and these types of mind structures. Right? Yeah, just a being born, I'll class it as captivity. There is absolutely no burden on any of us to prove anything. You focus purely on claims that are made to you, and if you can apply this language and this methodology that we're talking about, you can start to decipher all these claims in reality, the things that people throw at you, whether it be cultural or, whatever it is, religious, whatever, Carbon Chaos, greetings from the UK, Dale, how you doing? William Corrine, how are you? Aaron's Plain Truth, how you doing, man? Opened my eyes. Oops, I should jumped again. Apologies if I've missed anybody's comment yet. Flat Sabbath, Dale, yes, water is a great example of level and flat, but every structure in the world is also plumb and level on a flat and level foundation. Of course it is. Well, flat, I'm Canadian and I do have trouble understanding Dale at times, but I'm getting better. Well, cheers, Hulk. If anybody's determined to know what it is I'm actually saying, they will apply their earlugs and try and decipher. I mean, at this point, there may be times that I slip in and out of the slang phrasing, but the majority of the time I'm quite conscious of how I'm speaking. So, as I say, I've not got the time or the patience to try and please everybody. You would drive yourself insane trying to please everybody. It's not about that for me. Martin, sorry, Dale, say again, couldn't understand you. Magumba, you here? How you doing, man? Jonah Worms as well. These are well. Trackmatic, they couldn't make the control structure in the media more silly. People don't want to waken up. Yeah, I think that's an unfortunate truth, to be honest with you. And you do experience that. As I say before, there's people who are just happy with the delusions that they've been handed, that they think is a free choice through their own free will. But people like us know that it's delusional. And again, what do you do? Who's got a place to say that, again, until I have the knowledge of, a wider picture, how am I to know that people living in delusions is not just a better thing than what the truth might be? I mean, I don't know. For all we know, we've been at this point before, and it was decided that it was better for us to live in delusions. I mean, my mind's open to any possibility. My view, 1875, not got a notification, but spotted you were on. Yeah, cheers for coming. Well, we know that. I think people need to click the wee bell to get the notifications. But we know that there's fuckery going on and that people are not getting it. So, again, there's absolutely nothing any of us here can do about that. And I keep seeing people telling me, you need to do OBS, you need to do OBS. Well, if something's no broke, don't fix it. And I'm not a techie guy. I've not got the patience or the fucking time to figure any of these things out. So I'm just going to continue with this. It works. The mic, the camera, it's been the same camera and mic I've been using for a long time. As I say, I'm not interested in, let's get a better quality for entertainment purposes. If you can hear me, you can hear me. Just bear with me, I'm going to make a wee smoke here. Pragmatic, if we don't have definitions and standards, we can be unwittingly talking at cross purposes. Exactly, man. So this is the whole point of this evening, first principles, and laying out what it is we're actually saying, and how we can progress. People need to, come to the same place, or you're not going to have progress. But again, the very core of real science understands this. And I've put it out there, especially in the street interviews and stuff. For me, when you show it to people, when they believe things and you point out their belief and you ask them for practical examples, they can't come up with anything, they come up with stories. Now, that's the same for any other religion that I can go to. And I don't mean to just pick on any specific religion, but A religion is an ideology. It's a belief structure. You have to have faith. It's not something that's rooted in truth. So the same is true for this. As I say again, for me, religion has hijacked real science. I don't mean any specific religion. I just mean the way religion is structured and, put people into a position of believing things blindly without any actual verifiable proof. And that's exactly what's going on for me. And I can see it so clearly now. And I hope that many other people can start to see it. If you've not already arrived at that, then hopefully, in the very near future, people will see it very clearly. And I will continue to call the globe, heliocentrism, evolution, Big Bang nonsense, pure religion. That is all it is. And it's a nonsense one at that. And it is quite a disempowering religion because it does exactly that. It removes true foundation from people. It gives them a nonsensical, irrational, no rooted in anything nonsense. You're flying endlessly through space with no rhyme or reason to it, right? And it all just happened because, and you same as religious, we've got God of the gaps and these types of arguments. It's the very same with heliocentrism and people who believe in a globe, but they can't show anything practically. They just jump to buzzwords. Gravity, gravity. So, they're now employing gravity of the gaps. Crap. Right, just bear with me a wee second here.
Right, I've got a question about whether this parody channel is going to be floated though.
Aye, I know I said it. So it's just the way things are unfolding. I think once the kids are back at school, I've got a wee bit more time in my hands. I'm going to, maybe start that up. I'll let everybody know once it's up there. If time allows, there's just so much happening now, personally as well as this. And again, I just want to reiterate that because I was having some discussions recently, and people are very quick to assume who you are based on you just being a face on the internet. People need to remember that there's a huge other portion of my life that's not around this, and it's very difficult to apply your time to everything. I don't get a chance to catch up on videos or see what's happening within the whole social media much anymore. I've kind of detached from it because it's the same old meaningless fucking nonsense. People want to be fucking gurus, people want to be saviours, people want to add to the confusion, the division, and it really just drains my fucking energy, and it's not worthy of my attention, to be honest with you. So see cult being mentioned. Well, hi Greg, Scotland's flat, that's it. You do need a break sometimes. But for me, it's not about a break, it's just about removing my attention where it's really not necessary. Some of the things that have been on before, that time has gone, and my attention was there for specific purposes. Now it's the bigger picture, how do we really progress this and move it further on? There's seems to me to be loads of mainstream coverage starting to creep in now, and it's hard to get a gauge on what they're trying to spin, whether they're going to, reveal and spin some other nonsense, or whether they're going to try and perpetuate the globe bollocks by ridiculing this in some fantastical way. Who knows? But people need to be very wary of what they're partaking in regards to the mainstream, because remember, they will edit and they will put things up there in any way they see fit. So as soon as you have partaken in any of it, it's out with your hands. So you really need to be careful. Yeah, that's it, Scotland's flat. What is next? And really, this is it. It's like, all I had in my mind was to make a big enough noise, keep putting the language out there, keep putting my message out there, and hope that people would see it and understand it. And now that it's grown, it's really still stabbing in the dark. I mean, I've not got a plan laid out where I think this is going to end up, or how it's going to unfold, or even how I want it to unfold. I don't have any of that. I just have a known within myself that a noise has to be made. But that noise has to be something that can be packaged and shown to people in the correct manner, and know this circus that goes on. Again, the drama in these things is good for, it's a good tool when it's needed, but the be all and end all is no drama. The circus has its purpose, but right at the core of this, we need to have proper progress. So we need to think about that, how it's going to be achieved. YouTube, I've always liked Tazarian's thing about them getting us to rebuild technology, but in a way we don't know really anything about any of it. This is exactly right. Well, I totally agree. For me, the majority of people don't know. They don't understand the technology they're using. They know how we operate it, and that gives them an air of thinking they know it, when really they don't. They don't actually know the fundamentals, the actual mechanics of how it's working, and that for me is a problem. Tazarian, I always get the feeling from Tazarian, he was kind of branched off from Zachariah Sitchin. Maybe I'll need to go back and have a re-listen at some of his stuff, but I remember back in the day, it was just never-ending rabbit holes of bewilderment, trying to perpetuate it. And I'm no for celebrating bewilderment in any way, shape or form. I just don't think it has to be there. End of story. We should know who we are, where we are, and what this game's about. Right now, we're in a state of amnesia, and we don't have those coordinates, and we need to get them back. And again, it's absolutely useless and pointless for me to delve into societal structures and how we should and shouldn't live our lives, what's right, what's morally wrong, all these things that go on in life. I have my subjective preference based on who I am at this moment in time, but that shouldn't be projected to the rest of the world. And until these coordinates and these things are established, then I really don't have any way forward. I don't know what we're dealing with, where we come from, where exactly we are. So to try and build a better society or some other way of life, that's further down the road. Millennium order out of chaos is always defined incorrectly. It means we're new to this place and the Masons will make up a history. Well, I get that kind of feeling too, to be honest with you, Millennium. The history that we've been told just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. When I go to these stories of evolution right back to, abiogenesis and big bangs, it's a nonsense. It's smoke and mirrors to cover up the actual true story. Because, these naturalistic explanations and bollocks that they try and come up with just doesn't add up. Again, these things are no repeatable, observable in any way, shape or form. They can't recreate them. Therefore, they shouldn't be making these claims that that's what it is. If somebody makes a solid claim to me about reality, then they can recreate it, they can scale it, and they can show me it. All that other stuff is bollocks, for me, it's just part of the smoke screens, as I say, to hide what's really went on. But I get that feeling too. I always struggle with that, especially the different races, and how they would come to be through some sort of naturalistic, evolutionary, process, and what I studied, there was nothing practical in any of that. It was just a story, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It would make sense to me that they've come from some other place, whether they've come and they've progressed here, or we all progressed here by ourselves, or whether there was some manipulation and different races were brought from different places. Because again, we fall into this thinking that this is just Earth, Mother Earth, and this is life, and these mantras that are out there. Again, for me, smoke and mirrors. For me, there's a much bigger picture going on here. I say we could be in some wee dark corner of a vast, place for all we know, and we're all sitting here throwing ideologies at each other and all these battles and stories, and none of it means fucking anything. That's why I keep encouraging. Let's just ditch all this fucking stuff. Try and unite. And again, unite doesn't mean kumbaya. We need a common purpose. Not everybody likes me. I don't like everybody. Everybody has something to offer. So why can we not just find a common ground and work from that instead of this fucking division that's going on about I'm not happy with him and I disagree with that one thing that he says, therefore I need to rubbish everything about him or her. It's fucking nonsense. People are stuck in this looking for perfection, this wee perfection bubble that they've been sold, and they don't see that they're projecting all their subjective stuff out into the world and then trying to rearrange it in order to suit their wee bubble. It's not like that. Just because people don't like certain aspects of me doesn't mean to say they rubbish me altogether. I still have value, and the same goes for them. Just because there's certain things about other people that I disagree with doesn't mean that I rubbish them and they're new in my culty circle. That's not how it works. That's not how we move forward, right? Riddle me piss. Celebrate unity, boycott the charlatans. Yeah, and the charlatans, for me, the ones that cause the problems are these people players. These people who are continually, playing the drama against, people's personalities against other personalities. We do need that foundation. We need that common purpose, if you like, that common ground, what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to sort out. And never, when we're dealing with objectivity, it should never come down to, well, I don't like him and I don't like her and he says this and she says that. That's all irrelevant, totally irrelevant. And the perpetuation of that within this arena is the psyop. It's a huge part of the psyop, and people really need to break through that. You need to understand when it's your subjective nonsense that's getting in the road of objective progression. Right? And there's characters here, I'll call them agents, who are here deliberately to perpetuate that, right? Because you can see it in their behaviour that it's not rational, it's not logical. YouTube, Dale, I was naive. Tazarian leads into 1,000 other things. That is true. Yeah, he's one of these characters. The ancient mystery school teachings. These fucking twats that are just out there to confuse you further, as I say, for me, this control structure knows that there's something in humans that's questioning, that's asking in these questions, and that they put all these things out there in order for you to put your attention and your energy towards it, thinking, it appeals to my imagination, it appeals to the explorer in me, I'm getting somewhere. And you can spend 3-4 years of your life pursuing these avenues before you realise that it's a dead end. Some people don't. Some people delude themselves into, it's not a dead end, and convince themselves that there's some sort of reality in it. And then they invest in it with their time, their attention. They make books, and then the whole thing, becomes a mess. These guys, their thinking for me was based on a false foundation again. If they're just true, genuine people, they're trying to rationalise and think about reality and philosophise about existence based on a false foundation. Big Bang, heliocentric globe bollocks. Right, that's where we live. Now I'm going to try and establish what life's about. It's nonsense. And again, that shouldn't even be coming into the mindset of human beings. Human beings should just be direct realists. Human beings should base everything on direct experience, and that's what you learn from. That's what you learn from as a kid. That's what you learn from as a baby. If you don't believe me, go and watch your baby, right, and watch what it does. So, Gav, you're here. How you doing, man?
Yeah, all right, man. Good. Yourself?
Aye, I can shut the fuck up now and let somebody else talk. Excellent.
That's what you're hoping for, isn't it? But you do it so well, my man. You're not going to get away with it.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Come on, somebody has to say it.
So I've let people know I get back a bit late, but I had a quick scan through the email you sent me, man. I don't know if you want to just kind of continue on for any of the points that I've been bringing up, or
I'll say hello to everybody first. Hey, hi, Marshall.
Evening, Gav.
How's things with you?
Oh, fair to middling, dude.
Hello to everybody in the chat or watching as well. I know a lot of you, so
cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of kicked off just when we've been discussing a few times, Dale, about all these how should I say, globe cult members that still come on a Saturday and want to bring their arguments, And I think one of the things that they all seem to be missing is exactly that. What are the first principles of a discussion that, are required here? We still have all that huge debate online, or people defending positions, defending sides and arguments. And where the conversation needs to go is exactly what are the first principles that we can all agree on, and how can we move forward in that? So I think that's where, people need to focus their attention on. And again, instead of all these different sorry, on you go.
No, sorry, man. Sorry for butting in. I was just going to say, as I says to you yourself, referencing the guys, I think it was Thomas that came on Saturday, and he's quite clearly saying, yeah, I know I'm employing, fallacies, I'm appealing to authority, I'm appealing to numbers, and I'm appealing to, and for me, that's it. Well, that's where the conversation ends, and that's what people need to understand. But to me, these people, it's like they're rubbing salt in the wounds and just going like that, because for me, the majority of people don't really understand that language, and when I hear it, that's exactly it for me. Well, if you're employing a logical fallacy, then that's you're new out of the discussion. Unless you can, correct your ways and come back and address it, then you can move forward. But when they're not willing to, and they're just quite willing to sit there and say, oh, I know I'm employing logical fallacies, well, I'm not interested then, game over. So.
I mean, he was actually cheeky, I thought, I mean, in retrospect, you gave him your time and your attention, and then he basically come on saying, I am employing logical fallacies. I'm going to continue doing it. And he didn't actually listen to any other side of the discussion, which was pretty impolite at the end of the day. Yeah. But as you say, there's a lot of people still out there who don't understand the difference between the two, so I think they can get away with it easy, So
yeah, well, it's like you say, we need first principles. There's no point in me and you trying to build a house if we don't agree that bricks are square,
Absolutely.
If you're coming at me and saying, no, bricks are round, then me and you can't build a house together, because you think bricks are fucking round and I know they're square. They're rectangle, just to be.
Cubic. No, absolutely. So what I just thought is that, if we just prepare some, or just have a look at some of these things in more depth, right? What we actually mean by what is a direct realist, what is a first principle, why are they important, that kind of thing. To be honest, I think it's less the followers of this platform, because I think, they're all awake. But, what I really want to be able to do is also for these people who still haven't got what the problem is, right? So that they can actually, the next time they come, we can actually have a reasonable discussion. And that's, that's very, how should I say, that's the main thing, that needs to happen, if you ask me.
Yeah, because they're coming at us and portraying this type of thing like, that's just our interpretation of things, when it's not. We're not looking for our subjective interpretation of things. We're looking for objectivity. What's objectively true, and how do we establish that? And that's what's important. But you continually see these people coming, and they're part of the false dichotomy. They're coming at us, putting us up there as representatives of some sort of straw man, and then trying to do battle with that. And that's not what we're interested in. We're only purely interested in what is objectively true. End of story. So
yeah, what we're trying to do here is invoke a discussion, right, between all kinds of people, and the only way to do that is to agree in first principles, because philosophers for thousands of years have agreed that if your first principles aren't right, then all your conclusions can't be right either, right? If they're wrong, then your conclusions are going to be wrong, right? And so any conclusion that anybody comes to, whether it's mathematical or physical or any of those things, is based on first principles to begin with. And if people for hundreds of years are still arguing about the same point, then the problem must lie in the first principles. Do you know what I mean? And in the meanings of those first principles. And the other important thing I think to remember is that these things are only words, right? So we're speaking a language, we're talking, we're assigning meanings to different words. And if people have assigned different meanings to different words, then that's a problem too that needs to be uncovered right at the beginning, right? And only then can it progress. So,
Yeah. I mean, that because we've discussed before what level means.
Absolutely. So anyway, I prepared a wee presentation with a couple of slides. I'm not looking to bore everybody, but it might help us just angle through the conversation, huh? Yeah. And it'll give you a chance to take a wee break and roll a smoke.
Excellent.
I thought you'd like that. So let me just share my screen.
And I'm just going to add in, the majority of people who are feedback. Forget it. I'll let you continue, Gav.
No, on you go. It's feedback from me.
No, it's gone now. Just the point you were making about, the majority of people who are here probably know this stuff, but, repetition, these things need to be, keep pounding them out there, because if there's new people arriving, then it'd be good for them to understand some of this stuff. So,
right. Yeah, so one of the ones that I like is, this might be a bit small to read, but everybody can Google this in Wikipedia anyway, so, is the Ignoratio Elenchi, right? Which sounds very highfalutin, but at the end of the day, all it means is that somebody's missed the fucking point, which is the title of the hangout. Otto was one of the guys who basically laid down all these things to do with logic, grammar, rhetoric, and these things have been applied now for thousands of years, right? This is nothing new to academia, and it's actually nothing new to people who haven't went to study this stuff, because to miss the fucking point is something that everybody can recognize, right, when it comes up. And one of the things that they very often do, and maybe importantly, is to recognize here that this Ignoratio Elenchi is actually one of the, in a broader sense, it's all fallacies are a form of this, right? Of some misrepresentation of what is being said, so that at the end of the day, the point's being missed completely. And what they tend to do in these conversations is they either inject something into the premise that you have at the beginning that is not representative of the claim that was being made, and then they go off and they try and prove that one as if that was the point of contention, which it wasn't. So that's why it's called missing the point. A typical example is, for example, for instead of proving that this person has committed an atrocious fraud, you prove that this fraud he is accused of is atrocious, right? So instead of trying in a court of law to say that this guy has frauded you, the lawyer might decide to talk a whole lot about how this was a horrible, crime, just to, if you like, divert the attention onto that rather than onto the actual point that's being discussed, whether the guy was a fraud or not. So these kind of misrepresentations, basically, you come to an irrelevant conclusion, which is absolutely no use to the conversation or the discussion whatsoever. And as I say, it's colloquially known as missing the point. And a very good famous example, also from Wikipedia, or which can be found in Wikipedia, is the so-called, which I quite like, the so-called Chewbacca defense, which was actually highlighted on a Simpsons episode, a South Park episode, Chef Aid, where it was about the O.J. Simpson murder trial, where obviously South Park creators were having a laugh. But I don't know if everybody remembers the O.J. Simpson trial, but basically it was just a big, red herring where they tried to get O.J. Simpson to put on the glove. love. And everything was focused about this love that was far too small for him, which was not necessarily relevant to the overall discussion, but it was something that, again, was great to divert the complete attention of everybody, And this has been sort of taken forward and known nowadays as the Chewbacca defense, after the South Park people basically, tried to divert the attention of a mass murderer to start talking about Chewbacca from the planet, whatever it is, Kolshi or something like that, so it's all basically just a modern day equivalents of red herrings or this fallacy of an irrelevant conclusion. And you find that absolutely abundant in this whole flat earth discussion, and it's about fucking time it stopped, So I just wanted to maybe go a little bit more in detail about some of the things that we do know, right? Now, I'm a confirmed direct realist, which also really means that you're a dualist, right? So, we believe that the body and the mind are two separate things, right? And that we can have knowledge of the material world, and we can have knowledge of the mind, or the intellectual world, if you like, right? And this is the kind of separation that, I don't think there's going to be any dubiety or discussion about this, that everything to do with the material world is things like physics and, biology and engineering and chemistry and medicine, these are all material substances. And the intellectual world is all about things like grammar, logic, rhetoric, theology, law, politics, the fine arts, and all that kind of stuff, right? So one of the first things that a direct realist understands is that there is this difference between, what is the external world and what is our internal world, i.e., what's in our heads and what is out with our heads. And to be honest, my opinion anyway is that everybody can experience this, right? We all have our own mind-body experience. I have my mind, and I know that everything that is not in my mind is external to it, and that's the same for everybody else. I would say that's a self-evident thing, right? So, I mean, you've talked enough about this, so I don't think, anything needs to go further on it, and how important it is for things like grammar, logic, and rhetoric to be properly understood, right? Especially when it comes to those arguments and logical fallacies that like to be brought up, So as far as science is concerned, or the external world, I'll just restrict it to this one slide. You say it often enough. We have natural science and we have a formal science. Natural science is testable, repeatable, observable. Everybody can experience it. And agreeing on first principles is necessary for everything in natural science. It doesn't matter whether you're a mathematician or a physicist or a biologist. If you don't believe in your first principles or your axioms that you lay down, then you cannot go on to believe your conclusions, right? So you have to believe something to begin with. And in a formal science language, for me, that's more of an idealistic nature, because you can basically make axioms and definitions and create models to describe stuff. But none of that is based on observable empirical evidence. You don't need to have that in a formal science. But one thing that I think is absolutely key, and there will be people who will disagree with this, is that formal science shouldn't be able to contradict physical reality. Now, mathematicians will argue that point and say, well, it's okay to, have mathematical theories and stuff like that don't have anything to do with physical reality, because it helps us to understand things better. For example, they'll introduce imaginary numbers and say that, if we look at the complex imaginary numbers, then that better helps us understand the real numbers or the natural numbers. And yes, there is some, truth to that, right? In that it can be a good exercise of the mind. But still, when you take away all that, imaginary number stuff, which don't exist in reality, right? You don't have minus a stone. You don't have minus a fucking shed or a brick, right? You've either got one or you've got none, or you've got multiple ones. But when maths says, okay, we can use complex numbers to help better understand the real numbers, then still, when they come to actually make a conclusion and then, apply that to the real world, they have to be very careful to recognize what they've assumed in the first place, and not to just bring that into the real world, imaginary numbers, because sorry, they don't fucking exist, Anyway, and one of the things I think that's also pretty important is to understand the overall philosophical discussion of the last 300 or 400 years, right? There's basically three. This idea of being a direct realist, or being an idealist, which is the other side of the scale, and then there's the bit in the middle, which is basically generally called representative realism. Yeah. Now, this debate is still going on. So anybody, who comes and says that, what we are talking about is I don't know, stupid or dull, needs to take a trip to Oxford, Berkeley, or any of these other places, because these discussions are very much still the current state of affairs. There is no resolution to it, right? There's difference of opinions and all these things, yeah? And there's a whole bunch of different, people over the last hundreds of years that have had different opinions, and you can basically separate it into these three categories. My opinion is that, direct realism is, we directly and immediately perceive the external world. I don't believe that, there's anything in between, and that's what representative realism tries to tell us. They try to tell us that there is some object of the mind that exists of its own that we need to look at, to study, or even to try and sense. And I don't believe that. I believe it's a direct and immediate way that I perceive the external world. There is nothing in between. Yeah. And idealists, the guys at the very end here, they basically just, are in a kind of skeptical mode. They don't believe that anything can be proven, that we can't really experience the external world because we're stuck in our little heads and nothing else can really be found out about it. Yeah. You have to deny things or give them up altogether. Yeah. Now I don't want to go into a tutorial here on philosophy, but I do urge people to go out and just at least understand the distinction between these three things, right? And to do that, you have to understand how your mind works. And that is one of the things that I think that doesn't ever get discussed about enough, and people don't understand enough how their minds actually work, right? What it actually means, common sense, what it means to reason about things, what's an impression and a sensation. I'm of the opinion, for example, that every material impression that we have from the outside, whether I touch something or whether light hits my retina, is a sensation made on a material substance. And from there, it changes into something that goes into my mind. And they still don't really know how it all works, right? They'll tell us all kinds of stories. They'll make little machines blip, but they actually don't really know what happens in the mind. Yeah. There's the whole topic around causation and active powers, the ability to actually to do something or not to do something. They're about the only two powers you have. You can actually only do something or you can just leave it. Yeah. And then there's the discussions around, prosecution and judgment. How do you actually judge something? How do you prosecute the evidence? And you can already see the similarity in words in the legal circles, right? Where they use these same kind of concepts. And then there's the whole topic around empiricism and metaphysics. Yeah. And people need to be more aware of those things and how their mind works, to be able to understand how they got fucked over in the first place, right? And how the mind is, if you like, the key. And I think everybody understands also in the flat earth community that the flat earth is a kind of door opening into better understanding how your mind works, how your belief systems have been made, how to destruct them, yeah, how to look at things differently with more attention, closer. So, I think most people would already understand what I mean when I say we need to look closer at how your mind works, yeah, or at least that shouldn't be ignored the way it has been, yeah. So this is a slide that I'm trying to say, please stop me, Dale, if this, comes into too much of difficult to read. Is it too small, or is it all right?
You're all right, but I know that you can give commentary on it anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two things that a direct realist understands: that the operations of natural laws can be known, right? I'll start with that one because it's important that people understand that there really is a real material world that exists external to us, yeah? And that there's a real, they're not illusions, they're not apparitions, they're not, they're not things that are illusory. They are real material substances and natural qualities, right? Including my own body, yeah? And that we can know that stuff, right, by looking at the nature's laws and how they work. And we can do that just as well as we can as the operations of the mind, right? Because a lot of people think that what my mind tells me is somehow maybe fallacious, right? Or can be wrong. And, I don't think that's the case, right? My operations of my mind, that I can think, that I remember things, that I can reason, that I can reflect, that I can discern, all those things are operations of the mind that you can absolutely know completely, yeah? And I think that's something that a direct realist, understands, right? And that they're both equal to each other. So just as I can see that a rock outside, if I kick it, is going to hurt my toe, I also understand that that things that happen in my mind are just as good evidence, and I can clearly and distinctly discern those things. That's what people need to understand. Yeah.
So it's a separation between your subjective experience of the rock, as you say, and the rock is objectively there. And these people who say, "Oh, it's not really there." Well, everybody's going to be. If I drop that in your skull, it's going to crush you. It's going to hurt. There is an external world that is really there that has an effect on you. Absolutely,
yeah. And one of the things that's really important on that point, I think, is this: qualities or attributes of things cannot exist of themselves, right? A quality, a quality of a stone, right? Or a quality of water, for example, levelness, to take the example. It has to be within something. You can't talk about levelness without talking about a substance to which it belongs, right? So every attribute of a substance needs to belong to something, yeah? So, for example, you can't have motion without something moving, right? Motion is a quality of something, but something has to move. And if you actually believe that you can talk about motion without it being attached to a something, then that's just nonsense, right? That's just absurd, yeah, to talk about anything like that. So every time that, in logical or rhetoric or grammatical discussions, people try and separate those two things and want to talk about an attribute of something without attaching it to a material substance, then they're already guilty of making a logical fallacy, right? And that's a really important point, because that happens all the time, right? The one, good example of that is this, abstracting the levelness of water to be the tangent plane or the path that curved water takes, and a tangent plane to a line going through the center of the earth, right? And they try and detach that from the fact that we're talking about water, yeah, and redefine level to be something else. And then, they'll maybe try and attach it back again at the end, but they've manipulated it without it being attached to a substance. And that is just a no-go, right? That's not proper inquiry, yeah? And the same also applies, by the way, to the operations of the mind, because, to see an object or to see something, you need an object that has to be seen, right? So, you can't say, I saw something, but, even in the words that I'm just saying, it is a something. You have to see an object, and there's a distinction that needs to be made there between the operation of seeing and the object that you are seeing, right? And that needs to be very clear to people, that these two things are different. And that's one place where they very often try and confuse the words and what you're trying to, what they're trying to make you think. Yeah. There's also the problem that there's certain things that you cannot prove, right? And this is us coming into this idea of self-evident truths, right? There's certain things, there's an example here. I have an immediate and irresistible belief in my present existence, in my continuous existence and identity as far back as I can remember, right? Now, for me, that has always been me, right? I can always remember myself and understand all these things. But if anyone asks me for a proof, right, then I don't know any proof that I could give to them. It's one of these self-evident things that, as a sentient human being, that is absolutely, normal. There's nothing I could prove to somebody that is actually the case, that I am the same man as I was last week, right? If somebody asks me to prove that, all I can say is, sorry, I can't, right? Yeah. So there are certain things that we can't prove because they're self-evident, and water being level would be one of those. If you go out in the daily world, you will not see anything else, right? It is self-evident, yeah. And so, people need to be very careful that there are certain things that you cannot prove, you can only demonstrate, yeah, and that it's absurd to actually ask for a proof. Yeah. We've said a bit of this before, but one of the biggest problems, and it's actually acknowledged in philosophy too, you can look at, writings of very, very clever people who basically agree that one of the biggest obstacles to the advancement of knowledge is the ambiguity of words, right? And it's one of the main reasons why in most branches of science we have all these disputes that sometimes go on for centuries. I mean, the one around gravity is a particularly nasty one. And depending again on how mathematics is defined or what the meaning of a word is taken to be, then all this can be fairly easily construed in a different light. So that if I'm confusing, for example, two meanings under one word, then it's very easy for somebody to make me believe something because I'm attaching a different meaning to the word that's been given, and that that word's being abused. So, people need to be very careful around the meaning of words and how these things are sorted out. Yeah. Again, maybe nothing new for a lot of people, so I don't want to labour the point. But it's very relevant to the overall argument, right? That, we've got all these different words, definitions, meanings that are being interchanged, and this whole discussion around, is the Earth a globe, or is it level water or flat? We can see already that it all goes back to this a discussion in first principles, the correct meaning of words, and that's where the focus of the discussion needs to be, and not arguing over stuff like pictures and everything. Yeah. So the main thing that I think that we want to be able to do is or the problem that we all face at the moment is, how can the common man, so me, you, everybody listening, and all those scientists, whether they're astronomers, mathematicians, or whatever, how can we actually get together and start agreeing on what the actual definitions, assumptions, axioms, what are these first principles that we're going to agree on? Yeah. Because only when we get the conversation back to that will we actually make progress, I think, and we'll get rid of this false dichotomy of, have them all, they've got us all fighting over. Yeah. And, I've just got a couple of slides left here just so that people know that it's not going to go on forever, this little demonstration here. But it's important, again, to understand the difference between mind, body, and the external world, to understand what a first principle is. And if the purpose of this is to find an agreement between everybody, so that we can all discuss together and hopefully dissolve all these kind of division and compartmentalization we have, then I think this is where the discussion needs to go, and this is what we need to focus on. And what I'd like to actually see is to make a list of all the self-evident principles that every man on this planet, every man and woman on this planet can actually agree to. And if we can make a list of those first principles, right, those things, then it at least allows us to have those conversations and not to, dissolve it into some debate or screaming or shouting match. Yeah. So important things that I think about first principles is, what the hell are they? Where do they come from? Why are they important? How do we know what is a first principle? And maybe some examples so that people can see it. Yeah. So what are they? First principles have different words. You can think of a first principle as an axiom, as a universal idea. You can think of it in mathematics, at least, as a definition that you lay down. You can think of it as common notions, or you can think of things as self-evident truths. All these words are kind of synonymous with each other, right? So that these are the how should I say, the common notions that are required that we look at. So, for example, a common notion could be something like, if I add equals to equals, the sums will be equal, right? I could just as equally say 2 and 2 equals 4. That is self-evident for everybody. And so all those kind of self-evident things need to be listed and looked at and understood. The question is, where do they come from? Because if we start to look at a first principle, the question is, how do we know that something is a first principle? Do we know it from our natural constitution? So from our senses? Do we know what a first principle is in the natural world? Is it somehow, given to us by imaginary stuff like metaphysics and cosmologies? Or is it something that comes from a consensus or an opinion? Yeah. And all of those things are bandied about as first principles. Yeah. And the ones, especially here on the left-hand side, are the ones you need to be wary of. Yeah. Everything that comes from your natural constitution or that we can observe in the natural world is, absolutely more evidence of being a self-evident truth or being correct and true than the stuff that we're told that's imaginary or that just comes from opinion. I mean, one of the biggest fallacies that I think in science happens is that people think that the best explanation of a phenomena is then held to be true, right? Just because it explains it best. But that's not science, right? That's, again, just a fallacy, yeah? Because it, contradicts experience, yeah? How do we know something's a first principle? Well, one of the things that people say about knowing what is a first principle is that you can't define it in terms of something else, right? right? It's very difficult to break down into some other meaning, because if you could, then those other things would be first principles. So a first principle is something that you can't break down into anything smaller. It's not built on anything. It's not based on anything else, right? Generally speaking, a first principle is something we do not need to be taught. They are known instinctively. Yeah. You get them if instinctively knowing, for example, that if a pregnant woman walks down the street, that she will be carrying her baby with us. Nobody needs to tell me that, right? that she's carrying her baby. Of course, it's fucking in there, right? It's not going anywhere, so it must be with her, right? It's evident, yeah. And we don't need to know. We don't need to be taught that. Another thing is that it's a sure sign that it's necessary for lived life. So all the things that are seen as first principles, we generally have to agree to them if we're doing daily lived life, whether it's commerce, whether it's transactions, whether it's eating, sleeping, shitting, sleep. It doesn't matter. It's a first principle if it's necessary for lived life. A really important point is that it's common to all mankind throughout all time. So if for thousands of years people have been saying the same thing and they say it all over the world, right? Then it's generally can be regarded as a first principle. Sure, you could theoretically argue maybe everybody's wrong, yeah. But generally speaking, if the whole of mankind can't feel themselves spinning, right, and they can't feel themselves spinning for thousands of years, then you can probably take it as 99.99% that we ain't fucking spinning, right? But for whatever reason, they flipped that completely, right? 99.99% of the people believe they actually are spinning and don't realize that, that's absolutely contrary to a first principle, yeah?
Never experienced it, yeah.
One of the things that's also important is that, as I said before, they don't necessarily admit of proof. They're evident in themselves, so they don't need any proof, yeah? Like fire is hot and water is wet, right? These are two things that, what the hell, do I need to prove them to you? No, everybody knows it. Child knows it, yeah? And it's absurd to deny them, yeah? So if we don't have first principles, we need them for lived life. They are the basis of all reasoning and all science, right? Because it doesn't matter whether it's a mathematical axiom, you have to believe in that axiom if you want to believe your conclusions. So, you have to, as we all have to agree in first principles to take any reasoning further and come to any conclusions in any science. That's why they're so important. And they're also necessary for us all to discuss together. So these are the three most important things. You need them in lived life. You need them to reason. And they are the basis of any conclusion that you can bring to the table. So there's pretty, examples, of a natural constitution would be that, I reason, I can remember things, and that thinking are all real things that belong to my mind and that they're all true. And we can see a lot of nature's laws. Water is level, doesn't conform to the exterior of a shape. Horizon rises to your eye level. All things that I can experience by myself, yeah? And wrong examples would be spinning space balls, climate change, I don't believe in. I don't think anybody does anymore, yeah? So, these would be kind of different examples, but there's so many of them, it'd be difficult here to list them all up, and all I want to do is here just give a taste or a sense of it, yeah? Now, one of the things that I think is really important is this whole thing around imagination, that imagination is something that they give to us when we're kind of young. So they give us a lot of images, they give us ideas, they get our kids young and they repeat them to it. So we get a visual sensation, we get to play with a globe, or we see lots of pictures, they stimulate our imagination, and then they repeat until it's in our memory, right? So that when you're older, then basically seeing a visual sensation like that afterwards, people will actually believe that what they're seeing is actually giving them actual proof of something, yeah? So, saying that there's an ISS up there, and oh, look, there's a little object in the sky, if you look close enough, then people will then believe that the image that's given to us, that they're actually out in outer space and doing stuff, whereas the reality is we don't really know what it is. Is it a balloon that's up there? Is it a plane that's circling? Yeah. Is it a low orbit satellite? If you want to term them like that, all these things are possible. But this notion of space is just something that's been implanted in our imagination at a very young age. Yeah. This imagination is somewhere where it really has nothing to do with what is an actual fact or what is not a fact. Right. They don't belong to that whole reasoning. Yeah. I'm not actually going to get into this slide because I think it's too much. But what I want to do, and I'm just throwing this up as an example, is that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I take for granted, right? And the things that I take for granted are similar to the things that you could classify as first principles. principles. So, for example, we've already said, I take for granted that qualities or attributes must be in substances. They can't be abstracted from substances. You can't have qualities without them. Or that, that I am capable of reflecting on my own mind and knowing just as well in my own mind how it works as I have of a stone in the external world. I think there's a huge list of things that we can list out together, of things that we need to take for granted and things that are first principles. And if we can then agree with everybody all over the world, scientists, academics, everybody, that these are in fact things that we can take for granted, then we will avoid all these problems in debates. Yeah. And I think that's where it needs to go. So I'm kind of working on a list of things that are taking for granted, or a list of self-evident first principles that hopefully everybody can kind of agree to, and would be at least a step forward in the right direction as far as I can see.
Yeah.
I'm just going to skip back to the end again. One of the things that we talked about was the meaning of words. A really important point, I think, is this whole idea of people absolutely understanding what a word means before they go on. Level is the best one. I'll keep coming back to it. If two people come to the table and they both have a different idea of what the word level means, the mathematical definition or the common sense definition, then you're never going to have a correct way of discussing things. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's it for me. When they offer these things, I base it on the practical, what we experience directly every single day, and they're offering a mathematical construct, a theory, whatever it is they're offering, and that's where the difference is. We're trying to deal with objective reality, as you say, substances and what is actually out there in the objective world, and they're bringing ideas, imagination, mathematics, and that's the difference. We need to see it practically in order for us to establish between each other what is actual factual about the external world.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And without that, we can never come to any agreement.
Yep. Not people will just keep coming, bringing the same fallacies to the table, not wanting either to understand or not understanding themselves what needs to be done, and we're not going to progress. So that's where the attention needs to turn, as far as I'm concerned. That people look at that in more detail.
Yeah, excellent.
So I hope I've bored everybody with this presentation, but as I say, it's just a thing to get people thinking about it more. There's a whole wealth of information out there on this stuff, and I do recommend that people go and look closer at what these things mean. We'll be putting up a few videos pretty soon, just maybe to better explain it. So this is maybe a little primer for that as well.
Excellent. Well, that we'll share it, and we'll just keep at it with people, and we'll keep running over it and hope that the penny drops. And that it's the same for everybody else out there. If they can agree to these things and come to the table, then we can have the discussion and we can have progress with this whole shenanigans.
Yep, absolutely.
And for me, that's it. It's trying to get that to people. There's a huge difference between your subjective experience of the external world and what is actually there. Regardless of what you believe or how you experience or interpret these things, they are there.
Yep.
That's what we need to establish and look at.
Yep.
So whether it be, water doesn't conform to the exterior of shapes and fire will burn you, your subjective experience of being burnt by fire might differ from mine, but the fact of the matter is that fire will fucking melt your skin and boil your fucking blood. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Again, these things shouldn't have to be, discussed and have a false dichotomy of argumentation. They're self-evident. They can be experienced by people.
Yep, that's exactly the problem. Yep. And all these people, again, that come to the platform and try and wiggle their way through that, you're quite right to stop them all at the very first hurdle and say, look, if you can't get past that one step here, if you're going to, run the 100 meters and you're going to fall flat on the first thing, there's no point in even continuing. They might as well just go home, or go home and come back when they have either understood the problem of what we're actually discussing, or bugger off altogether because they're just at it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And people need to take a firm stand on that rather than getting dragged into this whole, supposed intellectual debate where people think they have to pander to these, nonsense arguments and the stuff that people are bringing to you. You just need to take a stance and say, no, look, commit to your knowing and what you actually experience in everyday reality, and stick by that. It doesn't matter what anybody's bringing to you, their stories, their explanations, matters not a fucking jot. They have to have practical reality, practical examples, or, you know, what they're saying is totally irrelevant.
Yep.
Right? And it's no boring. It might be boring for some people because people's attention are just not there, but for those that are determined to get progress and understand further, then it's useful, you know, it's priceless stuff. So I hope so.
Inspires people to have a closer look, or, you know, just to think more about it even. Know your own mind, huh? I mean, it sounds a bit of, you know, like it's nothing new that I'm saying, right? But look into how your mind functions, understand how it functions, because then you'll understand how they manipulate it. And that goes very, you know, heavily into the logic, the grammar, the rhetoric, the meaning of words, and this whole definition of what first principles are. So, you know.
No, excellent, mate. To say we just need to keep at it, extrapolate on it. I'm the same. I think, you know, given different examples of these things, you know, showing them practically is going to help people.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see it actually embedded in various things. You know, I think there's a phrase in the Constitution of the United States that, you know, basically says that it's a self-evident truth, that man has, you know, liberty and stuff like that. So it's embedded in the very foundation of you know, well-meaning people trying to figure the whole thing out, right? And so the problem is realized for thousands of years that self-evident truths or first principles are the basis of all further things. The problem is we still haven't worked it out, but we've now been, as far as I can see, at least our attention has been completely distracted from it, and we've been sold all these fairy stories and imagination, and people don't think about that anymore. And that's how they can get away with it. And we need to bring that whole conversation just straight back to it, you know, and say, look, no, let's not fucking go anywhere else until we actually have this point discussed till the very end, until we have an agreement. So there's examples of it everywhere.
Yeah, totally agree, mate. Gav, apologies to you and anybody else. I need to just nick away with 2 seconds. Sorry to leave you in the lurch here, but
no bother.
I'll be back in a wee sec.
Marshall, how's things been with you?
Well, I think everybody's tired of hearing me say this, but you know, fair to middling do.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. So you got a few presentations lined up, dude, in for in video form, have you?
Yeah. There's a couple of stuff that I've been working on with Glenn for quite a while now. That we're going to be putting up hopefully pretty soon. Some of the stuff is just very difficult to edit all of it and make it meaningful and not too boring and a little bit educative and funny, you know. So that's the way a lot of our attention has been.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, what you've shown this evening has been certainly well received by the people attending here, man. I mean, they're eager to hear some more, dude. So you know, if that's on the cards, that'd be fucking excellent. Yeah.
I mean, I remember we talked about this in January already. You know, my feeling, Teen, is that there's been, you know, a lot of things happened in the last 6 months. A hell of a lot of momentum that's come up in the whole community. One of the interviews that I saw from Dell just recently, that guy Chris, I think his name was, you know, for me that was kind of symptomatic of the status at the moment, that there's people out there who are already questioning what the fuck's going on. They maybe just don't know how to now correctly prosecute the evidence that's coming to them, right? And they don't maybe have all the tools to be able to actually, you know, sort out the wheat from the chaff and the bullshit from reality. So I think, you know, that's maybe where, you know, we can help better so that people can make those discernments. Because I think it's a kind of tipping point at the moment, is my feeling. That, you know, there's so many people out there, even you know, just the way it's exploded. And you know, I think Scotland's been a very good incubator for all of it, and this platform in particular. So that, you know, when you see all the people outside in the world looking at this whole topic, you know, I'm actually amazed. I can go out into the street and I can nearly, you know, tap anybody in the shoulder and say, "Have you heard of the flat Earth?" And they'll say aye. It's not anymore 1 to 10. It's like, you know, 8 to 10 are saying aye. They're still maybe lost and going down certain rabbit holes the way we all did, right? So that's why I think it's important now to pull them back so that they don't make all the mistakes that we did, or at least I did for the last 3 or 4 years, looking at all kinds of things, but pull them back to what is actually the relevant things they need to be looking at now. Because, you know, I think it's a tipping point, and it's Well,
that was it for me in my journey as well. Sorry if I'm just butting in here, but I had to really, you know, realise what was going on and pull back to what is in my direct experience. What do I know to be true? What can I experience to be true? And people get caught up in this, you know, world of all these things that are out there, and they're clutching at straws, and they're trying to make sense of all these things that are not within their direct experience.
Yep.
And that was a huge realisation for me, and people are too easy just to keep running at the myth and grammar of nonsense come out, and they're getting involved in, debates and arguments with each other, and they're never really going deep enough to understand, well, what is it I actually know here? What have I experienced for myself? And stick to that, and then share or discuss your direct experience of things, and then, conversation can progress. But they'll know that they're taking all this surface stuff, like false maps and models, the fucking ice wall, the blah, 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 and then people are coming into it, and they're trying to reason and find things out based on all these straw men,
Yep.
And it's causing so many problems. Right.
Absolutely, and there's more of it now. There's more, there's more of these lies and fallacies than there was 3 years ago, right? Because they're obviously, trying to control the agenda. So, they're pushing more and more of that kind of different stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's really difficult for somebody waking up right now to understand. Yeah,
it's like keeping it complex and making it out that it has to be more complicated for people, so that people get fed up with it in their mind, and they just, resort back to, well, I'll just wait in some external higher entity or higher intellectual to offer me the solution or the answers. And that's a dangerous game you're going to play with yourself there, because you're then subject to other manipulation,
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see when like when a lot of these interviews, whether it's yourself or John or anything I've done myself, where you see the belief starting to crack, right? But what they generally tend to do then is go away and look for another belief to replace it, right? And that's where they need to be very careful. What they actually want to be doing is thinking, well, no, wait a minute, forget all these beliefs. What do I actually know myself? What is my observable reality? How does my mind work? Let me now work this out for myself, and don't go and attach themselves to the next best belief that comes up. Because the problem is we've all been trained to do that, right? We've all been educated to, here, listen to that, believe that, listen to that, believe that, so that when people, rid themselves of a belief, their first instinct is to try and find another one to replace it. And that's what they shouldn't be doing, They should be thinking for themselves,
Exactly. And then they can achieve that, and when they get to that point, then you can start to group with other people who are the same, and then things are no about personal issues between our personalities and blah blah. We then know that we're trying to establish what's objectively true, and we're grounded enough to know that we're not going to start spouting nonsense at each other and confusing each other, filling beliefs in with other beliefs, and we just start to bridge the gap and start to build a true understanding of the reality that we're living in.
And as you say, if we have that solid foundation at the bottom on which we all agree, those first principles, then we can't lie to each other anymore, because there's that list of stuff where we all said yep, that's true. So you can't refute that afterwards. You can't deny it afterwards. You can't mix it up. You can't confuse it. You can't cheat, lie, or any of these things. So
but because we've lost touch with those exercises and that language, they employ sophism, sophisticated argumentation that's there. They know you're in a state of confusion and trying to figure it out. So this sophism that they employ in these arguments that they put out there can confound that. They can keep the confusion going and make it more difficult for people to understand and discern what's true and what's not true. But as you say, going back to it again, people have to become direct realists, base it on your actual experience, and that's it. Remove everything else from your mind that doesn't need to be there.
Look at the direct natural laws of the observable world, and understand how your human mind works so that you can't be tricked. Those are the two absolute essential things that people have to do, rather than going away and listening to some guy who thinks he knows it all. And I'm not saying that I do, but that's why I keep pulling it back to guys, go out, verify it for yourself. You say the same thing. So.
And we don't know that's the whole point. We're taking the most honest, intellectually honest stance you can. We don't know what the full dimensions are. We don't know the full objective truth, but we're willing to sit here and admit that and be comfortable with no known, and then try and progress further in order to try and achieve it. And just as you say, if you understand that language, the biggest thing is not to be tricked by anybody else out there, because people are tricking themselves. As you say, they don't recognise when they're needing certainty. They think they're removing a belief, they jump to another one, because that's been trained into them. You need certainty, and you need to take it from some higher power, whether it be a physicist or an astrotheologist or a fucking whatever. Somebody that's put on your TV screen and you're told this is an intellectual, this is somebody that's worthy of your attention. They're not worthy of your attention if they're bringing you nonsense. If what they're saying in saying their images, their videos, or their words, their rhetoric doesn't match your direct experience of reality, you know that they're fucking charlatans, they're spinning you crap.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. Or they're just deluded themselves, yeah? I mean, just to give them the benefit of the doubt, first of all. Which I know is fucking difficult given the amount of fucking charlatans there are. But
well, from the benefit of the doubt, but when it gets on nigh on 3 years of the same repetitive shite, you're left with no other conclusion than these people are doing this deliberately now. You know? So,
no, I know what you mean. Well, we all know the players, but yeah, I mean, the original point about don't give up the authority to judge for yourself. That's basically what it boils down to. You know, if you believe in another authority that's going to make the judgment for you, then you're on the wrong horse. Yeah, you need to make that judgment yourself, and you don't hand it over to anybody. Don't give it up, because as soon as you do, you've got absolutely no way of verifying anything for yourself. Yeah, and don't let them also say in their argumentation that it's not possible for you to be able to see it. You get that all the time too. Oh, it's really complicated. Couldn't explain it to you. Bollock. There's nothing. Well, don't get me wrong. It's not a simple question. All these topics, right, about natural physics or the operations of the mind. But because we're all equal in that respect, we all have the same observable reality. We all have the same mind. Then nobody is any better than anybody else, right? And that's what people need to realize. Don't let anybody judge for themselves for you. Do it for yourself, and don't let anybody take that away from you, because otherwise you're easily fooled. Yeah,
that's it. You buy into that hierarchy and you disempower yourself. As you say, you hand that over to somebody else, then you're going to be subject to deception, and you're never going to truly know things because you're just taking hearsay and things that are out with your direct experience, which is absolutely no good for you whatsoever. For me, there just shouldn't be any mind space at all within anybody for that type of thinking. It's like, and I've heard this bollocks. Do you believe you've never been to Mount Everest, but do you believe it's there? No, belief doesn't come into it. Why would I have to believe? I can hear what you're saying to me. I can have a look. I can see pictures with people's minds, people's holiday snaps and stuff like that. But I don't have to formulate something in my mind as in a belief that it's true. I can just have it there and say, well, at some point I'm going to go directly and experience that for myself, and then I know it. I don't have to have a space of belief in it. It doesn't have to be there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is important, that people understand how beliefs come about, right? Because, as far as I can see, there's three different ways. You've got what people would call original perceptions, right? The things that come directly over your senses, over your constitution, and you intuitively know then these things. So you believe in them. Fire is hot. I believe that, yeah? And that comes via my senses, via an original perception. And then you get the ones that are acquired through habit, through being taught, learning, practicing, exercising, reusing. They can be good or bad. I'm not necessarily saying all acquired perceptions are bad things, because there are these differences. But that's where you need to be very careful, that an acquired perception brings about a belief that might not necessarily be true, right? And then the third one is the imaginative one that we already looked at, yeah, where they can just, play with our imagination and showing us visual sensations and make us believe stuff that, has no basis at all in reality, yeah? And those are the three things that we need to watch for. The original one is the only one that is absolutely certain for all of us, and the acquired one is needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. Yeah.
I mean, you get into stuff like peer review. They call it peer review. For me, peer review is just like that. I mean, fire is hot. Here, Gav, there's that fucking lighter. Do you want to test that? And tell, aye, that's fucking hot. It's melting my skin. Cool. That's peer review through direct experience. Not just somebody's narrated bollocks on a piece of paper that other people have invested interests in that bollocks agreeing with each other. That doesn't constitute as peer review. It always has to come back to practicality. What is actually there in the observed world,
Yep. Well, for the real truth to come out, that's the only way for it to work. Yeah. Because, that whatever paper that they'll distribute, if you don't know the meaning of the words in that paper, then you've got no way of joining that discussion or verifying it for yourself, So it has to come to some practical, observable thing, Otherwise, you're, omitting, 99% of the human population, yeah? And 1% are being able to say that that's true, yeah? Because they're the only ones that know the definition of the words or the meaning of the the words or the meaning of the equations, or so bugger all that.
Any endeavour between humans in regards to social, political, everything for me should be based on direct realism and practical reality, empirical truths. All that stuff has to go. It's just all part of the sophism, the sophisticated confusion that's been built up through generations that really doesn't have to be there, and we don't have to get huge amounts of your attention. It's totally irrelevant for me. As you say, it always comes back to direct practical reality. If it's no matching that, and you don't have that to offer, get it to fuck. End of story. So, and that at least people as are trying to make progress. Even include, if you believe it's a globe, concave, whatever. People are welcome to come to this discussion. And let's try. Aye.
I think they should all come. Either the Globers should come too and give us their list of self-evident principles on which they've based all their reasoning. I'd love to read through it, and let's compare to ours, and let's look at the commonalities, the similarities, and work out what's in between it. But what they can't do is just not come and, for a start, it's a fallacy if they say they don't have self-evident principles. That's just pure bullshit, right? And if they don't understand that they've based all their stuff on it, then they need to go and do their homework and come back with that list. So, so I'd love to see it, That'd be exactly the kind of positive discussion that's needed, Exactly. Let them come, let's look at ours, let's look at theirs, let's find out what we have in common, then we agree on that, and let's discuss the other ones until we have a definitive list of what we would all consider to be proof, or stuff that can't be proven that's intuitively known, right? And once we have that, then we can reason together and come to the same beliefs, but not false ones,
Exactly. Yeah.
Sounds so simple, doesn't it? But
it is simple. And that's the infuriating, annoying point. That's part of my frustration through this whole period. Things are simple, and and you continually get this wave of fucking bollocks coming at you. And whether they'll just deliberate or they'll just confuse people who are still trying to work it out, it doesn't change my frustration towards it. It is simple, So it comes down to practical reality 100% of the time. And if you don't have it, not interested in it,
Exactly.
So hopefully, we keep, pounding this message, and hopefully we can get that happening. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, look, I think it is. As I say, we discussed that there is a huge change. If I think back to January, at the start of the year, a lot has happened in 6 months. There's been a huge shift in mindset, or people questioning stuff. And there's for me, it's this kind of tipping point at the moment. We just need to make sure the conversation goes in the right direction, I think. And, this is where it should go, and no fighting.
There's people like us that are willing for that, and we're not sitting in some false side of the fence, we really want to work it out and get it sorted out. And just as you say, I just want to touch on that quick, tapping somebody in the street and how it's getting so widespread. I was just coming back up the M77 there, and on the back of one of the fucking thingies at Research Flat Earth, somebody sprayed it on one of the signs. It really is getting everywhere, so it's good, and hopefully everybody keeps at it, keep fucking spreading that message, we're going to have those problems where people are coming in at it, and they're going to get some of the straw man bollocks, some of the nonsense. You just need to hope that they've got the determination to cut through it and actually find out what's true and what's not true, And if there's people out there that are trying to represent, actual truth and have progress, we can only hope that they find it, come to the table.
I'm just going to take a very quick break. Glenn was talking about coming on as well, Dale, I'll just send him the link. I think he was quite keen to come on and have a bit of a talk as well. Is that all right? Aye?
Of course.
I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm just off to the toilet.
No problem, man. I'm going to go to the chat and waffle. Marshall, how's things?
Dare I say it, calm?
They trolls?
Well, they're quiet trolls if they're here.
That's it, Greg. It's only ridicule left for them. There's nothing tangible, exactly. And that's part of the whole thing. You see them coming continually with their logical fallacies, focusing on people, focusing on straw men, trying to confound and confuse and keep people divided. They have nothing, and it all comes down to simplisticness. We're talking about the objective world, the world that we're all sharing. It doesn't matter about my interpretation or how I feel subjectively. It is what it is. And if they don't have anything practical to offer, then they have nothing to offer. Yo, a plectrum? Yeah. Can you shut that door, please?
Okay.
Oh, jumped. So I'm just at the bottom of the chat here. If anybody's got anything to add or any questions in regards to what we're discussing. Nisper, Dale, want to chat for a bit? No thanks, Nisper. I mean, we extend the courtesy, and we give people like yourself time who come with religious beliefs of globes. And as we've just discussed about first principles and, you know, the language that we're using, if you're not willing to come to that, if you don't accept natural physics and things like how water behaves and how we experience things every single day of our lives, then there is no progressive discussion to be had with you. You know, you've decided to take a religious stance in your belief structure. You want it to be true, and you're going to clamber over any nonsense to try and put that out there. We're not interested in, you know, what you want to be true or what you believe. You have to come with practicality, or there's nothing, right? That's it. It's not a hard ask. You know, we're not sitting here on a religious stance or a belief structure that we're trying to protect. We're people who are trying to figure out the world that we're living in. And we need to base that on practicality. I've made the point before. You don't come to me claiming to me that unicorns exist just over there beyond the imaginary curve, and then you're going to give me massive explanations for that. I need the practicality, or else I can't take anything you're saying seriously. You know, it's pointless. So it's up to you. You know, you need time to think about it. If you want to approach us with the right attitude and come, you know, with the right understanding, then fine, we can have a discussion with you. But if you're going to come in with theoretical bollocks that you done the last time, you know, as we highlighted, admitting that you're employing fallacies left, right, and centre, how can we even have a discussion with you? You know, that's just not going to go anywhere. So, and again, it's nothing personal. I don't know any of you, if you believe in a globe or whatever you believe, this is not about your personality or me having a personal gripe. I don't have any personal gripes with anybody. Right? I'm just a guy who's got his own personal life and his own subjective stuff to deal with, that's trying to establish exactly where I am, right? And that's it. Creamiers, they know it's not worth coming here, only truth here, can't debate truth, makes them look silly. Well, that's it, you know, and they've proved that over and over again. You know, they come with the same tired old argumentation, and again, you even see them when they come with argumentation. This is not about ideologies, right? This is about objective truth, about objective reality, right? There is no two sides of the fence. There will be two sides of the fence, as we've just highlighted, when people are misunderstanding first principles, the language we're using, the words and, you know, the meanings that we attribute to certain words. And if we don't have that figured out, there's nothing. You know, it's just a chaotic mess, never ending, perpetual, going round and round in circles as we're witnessing, you know. But for me, that a lot of that's deliberate. It's like stalling tactics so that we don't pull it together and start ironing out these problems and start facing it up, you know, hard and getting real progress quickly. Individual perspective, why the checkerboard, Marshall? You're making a rod for your own back there, fella.
The game's up now. The game's up, mate. I've been
What is that at the back of the cap?
What is it? It's what I call a moire pattern. It's obviously the way it's designed is give interference, and it gives you an optical illusion.
All right, like if you stare at it, it moves like the circles. It looks as if it's moving.
Yeah, or you know, if you fold it in half, it's a greetings card. You know, it's a bit of paper, people. Come on.
There's conspirators out there, you know, that think that. I get it. You know, oh look, there's black and white. That means Masons. Oh look, he's got two fingers. That means Mason. Oh look, he's got an Adidas sign on his t-shirt. Mason. Oh look, he's got a black and white picture. Mason. Fucking ridiculous. Yeah? Stop looking at these nonsensical things and start listening to the actual content. That's what the issue is. You know the image or the colour of t-shirt I'm fucking wearing or what Marshall's got on his screen. It's totally irrelevant. Yeah? You're back, Gav.
Aye.
Did you get it, Glenn? Is he coming along?
I'm not sure. I've just chatted to him, so it's early for him.
Right.
You might not be awake yet.
Right, five. Fuck. There's me projecting now. You know, everybody lives in Scotland. There's a time difference. Oh shit, that means it's like a low for fuck's sake. It's dark somewhere and it's light somewhere. Oh no.
That just means this is a worldwide phenomena of people looking for the answers. Yeah.
I'm just reading some of the comments here that's going on in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. Always interesting to hear.
We had the lad, I think it was Thomas, who was Inspire or Nisper, I've been calling it. Want to have a chat, you know, whatever it says. If he's not understanding what we're looking for, then the conversation's not going to go anywhere. I'm not interested in getting running around in circles. It doesn't do anybody any justice, you know.
Or getting sniped.
Passing out it so that your buddies can come in and snipe. Yeah. Well, I just don't appreciate the attacks from your chat and mods. I'm legitimately wanting to have a discussion. well, there is no attacks, there's no vendetta against you or any other globe believer. But if you're continually coming with the same bollocks, then we're going to treat you as a troll. And it's not progressive. It's time to grow the fuck up and realise what's going on. There's a valid question being asked. These space agencies and their fucking lies, their antics, is clear for everybody to see. So, Lewis MacDonald, I woke up 2 years ago. I can't deal with the lies from the system media entertainment. I'm becoming more disconnected from the sheep. I just can't think the same. Well, join the club.
I was just about to say the same thing, yeah. One thing that I think maybe gets underestimated is actually the joy you can have in starting to see things with a clear mind, or a mind that doesn't have all these beliefs, and looking at things with new eyes or hearing things with new ears. Do you know what I mean? It's really enjoyable because you get that, as you say, the explorer in us all as well comes back out, yeah? Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that before. The way kids learn, yeah. That they have this ability to just go with the signs that they're getting and to learn stuff that we don't attend to anymore when we're older. We just jump to the thing that we already know in our head, yeah. And it's really great when you don't have these things in your head cluttering it, that you actually start to then inquire yourself, and it's actually great fun. Going out into nature and seeing it again, if you know what I mean.
It's a much freer position to be in. You realise that you go, for fuck's sake, I've had myself all caught up in useless, meaningless crap for all this time. And it can be scary to let it all go because you think, no, I might have a strand here that's true. And, you just let it go. And as you say, get back to your roots again and the explorer, being a direct realist. And it's much more exciting,
Right.
And easier. Because you don't have this chatter going on in your mind.
Yep. Well, you do when you start to think about things, but you're thinking about them differently, if you know what I mean. You're exploring them yourself, so and not just taking something that's been implanted in there that you can't even remember when it was, whether it was when you were 6 months old or 6 years old.
It's always the same. It's that fear of things that is the worst hurdle for people to go over. But when you actually get here, you realise it's great. It's such a freeing experience,
Yeah.
Jonah Worms, Inspire, no attacks here, you read wrong. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, there's no intent to attack you or any personal vendetta, so you must be reading it wrong. I don't doubt that there is people out there who will attack you on some personal level, not that they even know you to be attacking you on a personal level, but that's how people interpret it. Nope. Bauchstrauss wasn't English established as the universal language to confuse any other man-made language with so many meanings of the same spelt or sounding word. Now, I play with that. I've mentioned it before. I think language, plays a huge role in the confusion. For me, we've lost the most important language, which is, intuition and intent and reading intent from each other, body language. These things for me would have been the fundamentals before any spoken word. That's how we would assess the world in each other, was through reading each other's intent, body language and actions, stuff like that. But I don't doubt that language has been used incredibly well to confound the confusion. Glenn, how you doing?
G'day, Del. How you going, mate?
Nice one. Hi, good man. Good. You?
Been an interesting chat.
Aye, certainly has. Cheers for joining us, man.
No worries. Glad to.
Cool.
Hey, Glenn, good morning.
G'day, Gav. How are you, mate?
Yep, all good. This is your flat level wake-up call.
Yeah, I didn't want to get out of bed, I can tell you that much.
Cold over there, is it?
It's freezing. It's about 2 degrees at the moment, which is bloody cold for me.
Yeah, just pull the covers back up over your head. Huh? But unfortunately, we've got this huge problem, Glenn. They're telling us a bunch of fucking lies and we need an answer, so...
Oh, yeah. It's never ending. I'm glad I got rid of the television, but they're still getting at me through the internet occasionally.
Yeah,
but
we're all guilty of that.
If we can stay away from the peer review bullshit and think for ourselves. I was just thinking when you were talking before about everybody's got to verify it for themselves and stuff like that. At the moment, it's pretty lonely doing that sort of shit, but there's getting to be more and more of us.
Yeah, and that's it. As it spreads further, I keep saying that there's loads of people out there with different skills and avenues of knowledge that I'm sure they can bring bring to the table, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think we'll see in the near future that some of the academics and scientists that are hiding at the moment will start to pop their heads up. They're going to have to. I mean, it's getting to the point. It's got to, like Gab was saying, it's getting to a critical mass point where some of those guys are just going to have to bite the bullet and start at least coming and talking to us.
Yep.
I mean, they're not even doing that at the moment. They're hiding.
Yep. Good one, Glenn. Yep, absolutely. It's actually getting ridiculous. The longer they don't come, they're going to look even more and more stupid, aren't they? You know, just from the very fact that they either do have the perfect answer to everything and we're just a bunch of diddies, right? Which we know isn't fucking true, right? Or they're going to, they're that far off it, you know, they're just going to look stupid.
Yeah.
They
don't come to the table.
If they really had anything, they'd be rubbing our faces in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The fact that they're hiding tells us the whole story, I reckon.
Yeah. And if some of these academics would just acknowledge to themselves that they don't fucking know either and come and sit here and join us and help us, that's exactly what they need to do. And the longer they delay that, also the more stupider they're going to look afterwards, right?
Yep.
If you ask me.
Exactly. Guys, sorry, I'm just going to go and grab my smoke. It's about time I had a wee doobie. I've not had one yet, so just 2 seconds, I'll be back.
No, you can't do that.
How can you have Beyond the Imaginary Curve without Dell?
Yeah, not possible. Not possible. Yeah, it's sometimes okay just to sort of fall asleep for 6 hours, Glenn, but when you wake up, the massive problem's still there, isn't it?
Yeah. Actually, I don't even know if I went to sleep. I was sort of... I really don't know whether I've been to sleep or not.
Well, you're looking fairly recovered and attentive, so...
Yeah, I'm feeling okay now. I just had a big cup of herbal tea, a big chamomile and spearmint.
That sounds good.
Actually, I went outside to take a slash a minute ago, and there's a giant male kangaroo just outside the door. I heard the thump, and I thought, what the hell's that? And all of a sudden, he just lifted up his head and looked at me, went back to what he was doing.
Cool.
I am here. What did I miss?
I was just telling a story about a kangaroo outside the door.
He's getting ambushed for kangaroos.
It's the Masons in disguise.
The other night I was... actually, somebody told me that kangaroos are a model for Tyrannosaurus Rex.
They're certainly not unsimilar, right?
No, same sort of shape.
Just one's real and the other one's fiction, but otherwise...
Yeah, I was sitting here in the cottage a couple of nights ago, and then about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there was all this thumping, and the cottage was actually shaking. Couldn't figure out what it was, and it was... I don't exactly know what they were doing, but there was 3 big males, and they had one male bailed up underneath the cottage, and the other 3 were attacking him. I don't know what they were. He might have come from another mob. He might have been an interloper trying to get into their women or something, but...
maybe he owed them money.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about animals. I don't have to worry about that sort of crap.
You know, it kind of makes you envious sometimes when you see that and the way they're living life. You know,
They're
free from the bollocks that we've created. You know, or whoever's created.
Yeah, I'm just looking around at. We got a heap of birds around here too, and just watching the way those guys just have such an incredible life. I love the idea of just being able to fly up into the sky and float around and watch things below, and then come down and land. And you know they're not thinking about anything. They're not worrying about anything. Even when you see an animal that's wary, like when we've got actually a big mob of kangaroos that comes up just about every day or every evening. And you can see that they're wary, but they're aware. They're not frightened. People think that they're frightened, but they're not. They're just you know that they're just aware of what's going on all the time. But if anything dangerous happens, they are alert. Everything sort of goes into danger mode. They check everything out. As soon as that danger's gone, bang, they're back into peaceful mode.
Yeah.
Where we tend to just we stay worried.
Yeah.
And I think we stay worried because that's what television's all about. I think those things, all that stuff that's happening at the moment is we're being kept in that state of fear.
Yeah.
And I try to tell some of my friends, people that I speak to face, I try to tell them, I mention the fear, and they all say, I'm not afraid of anything. There's no fear here. But you can see it in their eyes. You can see it in what they say. You can see it in their actions, the way they're living their lives. They just don't get it.
Yeah, but we were in that state. I always reference that, get back to like the kids when you observe them, and we were there, we were the same. They don't and dwell on these things. They just live for each moment. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you can keep it, boy. It's only when these structures start to be implemented and these blockers are starting to put, it's like a traumatic experience, and then they start to analyse, overanalyse, they build patterns in their mind, that they get fear, they're living in fear. And that's the same for me, Glenn. I get envious of that, and I've theorised that, maybe that's your problem. We're having to contemplate on a lot of fucking bollocks. If I have to contemplate or think about anything, it should be something creative or constructive for my experience, for moving from each moment to the next. No irrelevant fucking stuff that happened 1,000 years ago, or that's going to happen in 20 years, or any of these types of mind structures that have been put there. I think that's
I agree. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying I think that's a huge part of it. We don't just live for each moment in time. We're having to contemplate and dwell on this nonsense that's been put in front of us.
Exactly. And one of the things, what you just basically said then, is that the past is fiction, the future is fiction. We've only really got now.
Yeah.
That if you live in the moment, you don't have those fears. I know it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's a bit of a new age idea in some ways, but it's a fact. The past is gone. The future's not here yet. You've only really got now.
Yeah.
So it's with now.
It's not even a new age idea. It's just, as I say, we were that once in our lives, and every kid that's born is an example of that. So it's not like a new age idea or something that's untangible that we could never get to. It's already there.
Yep.
It's just we're born into these generations having to deal with this manipulation and this bollocks that's went on. Whatever it is, and hopefully we'll get to figure that out.
Like Gav was saying before, this sort of new knowledge is something that we can actually be joyous about and be happy about, and start actually. I think it's all about beginning to learn, beginning to think again. It's the way I sort of feel about it. It's like we're actually starting to think again.
Yeah, on things that matter and things that are relevant, no irrelevant, useless crap that we're pondering on and thinking about,
Not living in our imagination.
Yeah.
Living in reality, looking at direct reality.
Yeah, but that's where the whole heliocentric Big Bang globe nonsense leaves you. It only leaves you with your imagination.
Exactly.
You're having to try and reason and rationalise your existence through your imagination, and that's being done, as I say, from a false foundation. You're thinking, going back a few years, you're taking it for granted that that's all true. It's a globe. You're flying through the vacuum of space, and you're only living through your imagination. But when you realise that's bollocks, you're back to ground level again, and being level, and starting to experience reality for what it actually is, and trying to figure it out. And it's great. It's exciting stuff, and it's tangible. It's not billions of fucking light years away that you need some super duper agency to explore for you. It's here. It's in your direct experience, and that's why I keep trying to encourage people. Package it like that, offer it to the world like that. It's exciting and it's new and it can be progressive. They keep pushing this nonsense. Oh, you're trying to take us back to the dark ages, whatever the fuck that is. You go, no. Yeah. Well, where are we right now? We're in the fucking dark ages. We've been pushed this bollocks that progression is technology, when we're all retarded in regards to how we operate with each other as communities and in relationships and the things that really matter. We're fucking retarded. Oh, but we've got these fucking smartphones. That's no progression. That's no advanced civilization as far as I'm concerned. That is fucking the dark ages, because we're all running about in bewilderment.
I tend to believe that there was a previous civilization that didn't have electronics. They had, I don't know what they had, but just some of the historical artifacts that are around at the moment, the megaliths, there's a channel called New Earth where this woman sort of is looking at a lot of the megalithic structures that are being found all over the earth, and they're the same on every continent. The building systems are the same, the stone structures are the same. There's absolutely no remains of anything electrical. It sort of seems to me that it was something else. Total speculation, probably not really worth getting into too deeply, but
that's worth checking out. That New Earth, that's the Chinese girl on it. That was Marshall. You put me onto that as well.
I think she's Polish.
Polish, is it?
I think, Polish or Russian.
Yeah, but some of these structures, as you say, it's how things are seen together perfectly. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah.
But they'll push this fucking narrative to us that the further back you go, the more primitive people go, it's total bollocks. Think of what.
I'm absolutely convinced that the previous civilization, I've got no idea what it was, or anything I think is pure speculation. But I do tend to think that it must have been magnificent. It must have been for it to be worldwide, which those stone structures, the evidence of those stone structures points to, means that it was pretty incredible society.
Yeah, and I think it could have been us, at a time when we applied direct realism and we had fantastic, proper real science that we could share between each other. As you say, the evidence is there. You only need to go and look at these things and then try and fathom in your mind. We can't even conceive of constructing these things today, but back then, what primitive they were.
Actually, it's like just about every aspect of all my previous, I'll call them beliefs, have been shattered. I mean, when you first start doing this sort of stuff, it's shocking and even a bit embarrassing. You sort of think back to the stuff that you used to believe.
Yeah.
And in particular about flat Earth at the moment, but before then, things like evolution, things like, believing that the medical system was based on looking after your health, believing that the food industries were about providing proper nutrition, actually believing all those things for so many years.
Yeah, it just shows that we have a propensity to want to trust, and anybody in a position of authority or whatever has a huge responsibility in regards to that, because we all seem to have had that, where we just naturally look to the elders or whoever is in whatever position for our knowledge and our understanding of the world that we're living in, and that's been fucking twisted with these bollocks stories that they've fed to us.
Yeah, that's why I think it's really good what's going on at the moment with the people starting to think again and starting to ask questions, and like Gav's been looking into pretty heavily into first principles and direct realism and those sorts of things that are the way we should be looking now. And I really do think more and more people are going to come on board with it. But one of the really good things about it too is that the type of science that's being done, or the experimentation, is open to all of us. You don't have to have. Well, actually, I think you're better off not to have a degree in some ways. Well, actually, I was just going to say too, Gav. It's one of the things that I'm proud to know you. You're one of the. Well, actually, I think you are the only academic I know that's coming out and actually confronted things front on.
Well, I hope not. I'm sure there's more. Thanks anyway, man.
Well, where are they?
Yep, I agree. But what I did want to say was I agree totally. It's the fact that we all share in common these same senses, faculties, and the same art of perception and same, mind operations. It's because all these things that we share, that's the thing that we need to come to the table and discuss about, So fuck all the degrees and the meanings of words in some specialised branch of science that only a few people can do. That's not good enough anymore, We've seen where that ends up, right? So,
I reckon the education system should go back to that system of what was it, where the teacher would teach several subjects or all the subjects. It's
called the regenting system. I think you're referring to what they use. Yeah.
If we went back to regenting instead of compartmentalising everything, I think that's how they get away with a lot of trickery. A lot of the trickery is done that way, because if you can keep people locked into just one area of study, you're going to be able to control them. You're going to be able to control what they actually learn.
Yep. Which meanings to which words they apply. Yep. What imaginations they get when they're sitting there thinking about it in their wee peer groups. Yep.
Yeah.
So all these things are very easily then manipulated with language, rhetoric, grammar, definitions, and the fallacies of first principles. Yeah.
They trick you into thinking that you've got a choice, because you make that choice to which subject you will study. But you don't really have there is no real choice.
No, me and Ben had that kind of discussion a few weeks ago in regards to education and clans and how they might operate, and the children learning skills from every practical person in whatever walk of life that their expertise is in, and it's all based in practicality. Going back to that, you're not going to sit in a clan and go and learn for some imaginative fucking story from some guy. You're learning practical, hands-on experience of actual reality, which is proper education and builds strength and character, rather than this, as you say, going to an education system and things are broken up into wee fucking bits and bobs, and it's just all stories and written text and books, and there's hardly any, in my experience anyway, hardly any of my education was based in practicality. You had physical education and craft and design or tech drawing and these things, which were just a wee portion, when the whole education should have been based on practicality. End of fucking story. Or what use is it to anybody? None.
Fully agree with you. When I was in the middle of my education, I wouldn't have agreed with you. I would have thought that was all, fine. Aye, that's all been done and dusted. I'm going to way off into my equations because I know better. Yeah? But now I'm absolutely with you.
Yeah.
The rest is not worth a fuck. Well, it's only worth it on top of the rest. Yeah, you have to have that practical foundation.
Everything that we use, that we're employing, all these things that we're using right now are based on practicality, practical reality.
Yep.
Well,
were you talking about logical fallacies before? Or?
Yeah, we brought the subject up in respect to red herrings, misrepresentations, irrelevance, conclusions. Yeah, so it's basically one of the main fallacies that gets kind of reused, like a category nearly enough. And it's sometimes it's difficult to spot, especially when they substitute this, they avoid discussion in first principles or substitute axioms that they apply meaning to that nobody else can figure out because everything's compartmentalized, or certain words and meanings are attached. So that's one of the more difficult ones to spot, and that's why I think it needs to be pointed out and talked about.
Yeah, actually, in a sort of a juxtaposition to what Del was saying about practical studies and stuff like that, we as well as hands-on stuff, we should have been trained in understanding logical fallacies, in critical thinking and stuff like that. That's part of the education system has been to point us away from doing that sort of thing, to lock us into those compartments and get us to only study those things and look to authorities in other subjects to know about other things, instead of using our own minds to think logically, to think critically. Just the whole concept of thinking.
Yeah.
Understanding the human mind and how it works, because that's part of nature, and you experience everything through that. So how can you judge about any observable, knowable experience if you don't really know how your body and your mind process the information or whatever, or experience that direct reality, And I don't think there is necessarily an information transfer. I don't believe in all this sense data stuff, right? There is nothing between me and my experience. There's not some sense data that I need to chase, or sometimes I don't even need to measure it because it's not measurable, and they'll make up something, that should be measurable. But these are all kind of fictions of the mind that don't really have relevance to the problem.
Exactly.
Anyway. Yeah. And again, it plays on your emotions. The education system in regards to things like history, things that are nothing to do with you, but they're trying to pull at you, get you patriotic to things that are totally irrelevant to you, that mean absolutely fuck all to you, and then try and get you to place importance on that and invest yourself in it. And that's only going to cause you problems, as you can see in the world around you. People patriotic to ideas and things that happened 200 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 150 years ago, and it's just all fucking bollocks. What use is it to you, and what importance is it to you?
Right now in solving this problem, right? That's where the attention needs to come. Not in the past.
If you think about it, we'd have been taught how to see what a logical fallacy is. If we'd have been taught about sophism, if we'd have been told about those things, we'd have been wary of them.
Yep.
We would have been looking at those things. They wouldn't have been able to get away with what they've got away with.
No. And you can see that the obvious decisions to remove these things for the curriculum is based on manipulation. It's somebody with somebody with an agenda to keep you fucking in confusion and controllable. Because it's just as you say, if we had these faculties and these things from a young age, you're not going to be able to tell me bollocks about globes with fucking oceans clung to them and things happening in far off galaxies billions of light years away. You just want to get away with it.
No. You well, I mean,
fish monkeys on a spinning ball. Sorry.
They've had hundreds of years at least, perhaps thousands of time, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of access to people. They've been able to set up think tanks and work out how to do this. Where we've all been monkeys on a spinning ball, they've been sitting in back rooms working out how to do these things. You go back and read H.G. Wells and and Bertrand Russell and those guys, they sort of give you hints about the think tanks and stuff that was going on then, about how they were working out human behaviour and how to control.
And it's not a nonsense conspiracy theory. Again, it's directly evident, as we just discussed. Who in their fucking right mind would want to remove logic, rhetoric, grammar, reasoning, natural science from the curriculum? I mean, nobody, so it's not a conspiracy. There's an agenda here to keep us in bewilderment, confusion, gullible, and in control. I mean, it's obvious. It's self-evident.
Absolutely.
You talked about the Dark Ages a minute ago, or about what we think of medieval ages as being somehow barbarous and violent, and the Black Death and pest, and but that's where a lot of all that stuff gets sorted out, and where it all got taught, right, from the whatever they say, the 1400s to the 1700s, where all these universities got started up, and that was always part of their curriculum, right? You kind of, I suppose it was all church funded, and you basically worked your way up. You got the liberal arts, the rhetoric, grammar, then you got the quadrivium, so the maths, the geometry, all that stuff, and then your final destination was theology, where you had to think about creation, right? What we would call the construction, or just what the fuck is this, right? In colloquial terms, right? But that's what they were doing basically all through these, and then it stopped in the 1700s, right? That's where it didn't get taught anymore, and things like New Latin were introduced, and then mathematics and all these formal things, and the abstractions just got so big people don't fucking see it anymore, So they've been at it for a while, is what I'm saying.
But we would eventually figure these things out naturalistically anyway. You wouldn't need a university to teach you. Eventually we would all get sick of each other, sick of bullshitting each other. I can see through your fucking lies. Then we start attaching names and labels like logical fallacy. I see it in your behaviour. I know what you're doing. We're going to give that a name as ad hominem or whatever. Through experience of each other, we would have, if this has been going on for for however long our history is, we'd have got fucking sick of each other long ago and figured it out easy.
Absolutely. And even on top of that, Dale, one thing that Scottish common sense realism said also was that nature has actually given us a special faculty to deal with that stuff, and that's to ridicule it, to show it for the absurdity it is, to point out its contradictions, to show, that is not possible because it contradicts my lived life, right? So, it's, sorry, I've lost the plot.
Cool. Aye, it's just going into what I'm saying, naturally you're going to end up at that, and you had it as a kid as well, telling you fucking fables and stories. As I say, I've got a fucking BMX that can fly, fucking show me it.
Right.
If you don't show me, I'm going to take a piss out you for telling me fucking, So it's not hard to see, as I say, I spoke to Ben about this, a few weeks ago. If we give us, 1,000 years, just for talking's sake, hypothetically, our history, within, 100 years is throwing more bullshit at each other, we're going to get fucking fed up with that and start figuring things out, and you had to implement some, methodical approach to take us away from that, which, as we say, you've traced it to the 1700s, a couple of hundred years ago. That's enough to confuse us, but, we're now at this point where we're going, no, hang on a wee minute, we've went so far with this bollocks, I think it's time to reconnect with, actual reality here.
Yep, show it up for what it is. It's the good old point, the emperor has no fucking clothes, right? So, everybody needs to start pointing at the elephant in the room, whatever it may be, in all these different disciplines, and people already are, and as soon as the more we use the tool that ridicules that, right, the quicker it is for everybody else to see, because that is also a natural language. It's self-evident. Well, it's nearly self-evident when somebody takes piss out of somebody else, right? Because you see it happening, and you can actually discern that, So it's a powerful tool, is what I'm saying. So I'm looking forward to that parody channel as well.
Aye.
I'd like to contribute to that too, if I can.
I've got a bank and a wealth of material there, you know what I mean? So
it won't run out, will it?
Oh. But I mean that the whole game, it always brings me back to that. Well, I can see these things, so for me, it's like to stifle the explorer. It's to stifle us from exploring further. Is it to stifle us and stop us from making discoveries that's out there? I mean, I don't fucking know. Is it just purely to keep us and maintain us as a workforce that they can use for their benefit? And there's nothing else there to explore. I mean, I don't know. To me, it all points towards, look, they don't want us thinking like that. They don't want us progressing. So for me, there's something there to discover, something hugely significant. And for me, that's what the whole game's about, is to try and stop that discovery, whatever the fuck it is. You know?
Yep.
I agree.
Otherwise, there's no reason for it. You know?
Now, like Gav was saying, common sense and lived life show you that there's something seriously wrong, that they do have a purpose in it. I think what's going on at the moment is that they've come to this understanding or this belief amongst themselves that there's too many of us, and that's why all this bullshit's going on with the food system and the health system and stuff like that. I think there really is something going on there.
Yeah, but is it that you know, in more numbers, there's more chances breaking out? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it might have something to do with this whole idea of robots taking over. I mean, actually, no, let's not go there.
The transhumanism agenda, you mean?
Oh, yeah, no, let's not go.
Yeah,
No.
let's not go there.
Fuck knows what that.
Sorry about that. I was sort of thinking about the fact that we are actually living in the dark ages. I mean, for the last 100 years, people have, mothers have seen it as a good thing to do to send their sons off to war. I mean, how can that ever have become a logical, sensible thing to do? How has anybody ever believed that that's okay?
Because it's based on emotions. It's based on emotional reaction and emotional thinking. It's not based on logical reasoning. That's the difference, and that's where I see it with people. People act through emotional impulse and assess the world through their emotional interpretation of things, rather than they don't have these faculties. The majority of people that I see purely based on emotion. I think they play on that hugely.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah, that's definitely good sense.
Yeah. Well, guys, I'm had that wee smoke and I'm going to start to sink here, so I think it's probably a perfect time to call it on that.
Yeah.
No,
man, it's good to catch up with you and speak to you again. And how should I say? I mean, more people come on and support you and talk, because I know you're always good for a break, and having other people on and not just saying the same old stuff. So come on, everybody, get on and speak. And one other thing I did want to say, so I'm going to beat you to it. We were talking about our partners and the amount of things they have to suffer, because we just need to get this fucking flat Earth out there and moving, or whatever. The truth coming out, right? So I'd just like to say to all the partners out there, of all the people involved in this, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do it either.
No, it'd be so difficult. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I got my brownie points. If my wife ever watches this. Anyway.
That's it. No, it's well said, mate. I'm the same. Without that, life would be harder. This wouldn't be as easy. It's not easy, but it'd be much more difficult without that support there. So I'm in huge appreciation for that.
Yeah, keep it up, man. A bunch of folk behind.
So are we all getting more hole tonight or what?
Well, you get sent out to your shed, I get sent out to my little cottage, but, they're still back there backing us.
That's it, mate. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to, before we go, I'd just like to issue a challenge to any of those ball earthers that would really like to come on and discuss first principles. I'm sorry to do this on your show, Del.
No, it's not my show. This is the people's. It's not a show. It's for the people. So, you guys, everybody else out there that's got something to offer or bring to discussion are welcome to it. It's definitely not my show. So
thank you very much.
I appreciate you guys, and hopefully, you keep it up and have much more of this kind of chat.
No worries. I enjoyed it. I actually, second time I've been on, and I've enjoyed it again.
Excellent. It's a pity you weren't here a bit earlier, mate. But it's 2.5 hours, and I've had my first wee doobie, and my mind's starting to switch off now. So.
All right. See you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Gaff.
Bye, Marshall.
Yeah, see you, Marshall. Sorry, mate. Didn't even say good day.
Good night, Biggs. And to everybody in chat, we're back on Saturday for Open Platform. I know that there's been a lot of people that have been requesting links and stuff. I mean, this evening we put aside for Gav and Orpik to come and have a chat, and I think you can all see the reasoning why we kept it clear. Thanks again, people. Yeah.
Well, cheers, Glenn, again, man. Gav, much appreciated, mate, as always. Magumba and Jonah Worms, everybody in chat, much appreciated. As Marshall said, we'll be back on Saturday. Open platform for anybody who wants to discuss any topic. The usual, as long as you're not making claims to things being objectively true, we're not going to have an issue. We can discuss anything. And the phone will be back on. So, cheers, guys. Much appreciated. See you on Saturday, people. Take care.